What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and yes, I'm back for another new album review for you guys. Yeah, this weekend, there were quite a few big releases that I wanted to touch on for sure. I did Exodus yesterday, there's a couple more coming out, and this is another big one. And I reviewed their last album that came out over 2.5 years ago in 2019. Of course, I am reviewing the latest release from Finnish melodic death doom masters Swallow the Sun and the album Moonflowers. So, I don't feel like I really need to go into too much detail about Swallow the Sun, because I think I did this kind of brief little history thing when I did the review for their last album. But I guess a quick brief one. These guys have been going strong since around the early 2000s and have just been pumping out consistent albums after consistent album, you know, with the combination of what you hear in Sweden with the melodic death metal style, mixing it with like the modern Finnish doom metal sound with how it just gets slower and thicker, but combining it with melodic death metal, especially over in Sweden, but mixing in elements of prog, gothic metal, and even a little black metal thrown into the mix. Well, the black metal elements started to pop in on their previous album, When a Shadow is Forced into the Light, which, like I said, I reviewed on this channel, and what a fantastic album that was. So when I heard a new album was in the works or coming out from Swallow the Sun, I was like, I gotta talk about it, especially since fellow Horseman podcast co-host Ricky is a huge fan of Swallow the Sun, and he probably would kill me if I didn't review this album. So Ricky, if you're watching, and I hope you are, I hope I do it justice. So with Moonflowers, we kick things off with the opening track, Moonflowers, Bloom and Misery, and it starts off in a completely different tone than what I heard on the previous album, and you're going to notice this throughout the entire album. It starts off with some more sinister, clean guitars to kind of give the beginning of the song some dark overtones, as well as the clean vocals kind of coming in along with it. The string section, the bass, and soft drums come in to just add even more to the darkness, before it turns heavy in quite a dramatic fashion as the riff gets thick, the vocals get evil, and the soft and clean verses with a heavy and dirty chorus. Absolutely love how the dynamics were going on this track, and especially love how it ends with the sinister orchestral elements. So here on this album, I'll touch more about it when we get towards the end, but then we get into one of the singles off the album, Enemy, right off the bat with the riffs and the vocals. Memorable choruses on this song. I would have to say this was definitely one of the standout tracks for me on the album because of just how memorable the chorus was and just how it just keeps on that evil, sinister atmosphere that you heard on the first track, and a lot of murkiness on top of this song throughout the riffs and the vocal performance. I just absolutely love this song. Woven into Sorrow following suit, beautiful clean guitars to eventually bring forth the heavy death doom style riffing. Well, then again, it kind of borders on funeral doom because it's so slow to start off. And the vocals, the clean vocals on this song by Mikko, goes back and forth between his trademark somber style and the lower end, almost gothic vocal style. But then around the 2.5 minute mark, wow, we get a thick, heavy fucking riff to just add intensity on top. The piano and orchestra adding some more dynamic shifts, going into another heavy riff to build up to the growling vocals. And this song, I mean, you want to talk about dynamic shifts and like tempo changes in terms of the doom side of things. This track just goes everywhere from mega like funeral doom slow to more of like a doom groove at times. Keep Your Heart Safe From Me, chug-a-thon of a riff to start this track off. Something similar to something I would hear from Opeth, like the riff on here to start this song off, very Opeth inspired. And then it gets into more clean guitars to bring forth the vocals. Again, dynamic shifts quickly into another heavy riff that just cuts through, as well as the growls. Even some tribal beats I hear in this song going on in the background, which adds more to the diversity that this song is able to provide. Beautiful guitar solo that's going along with the keyboards, like a keyboard solo and a guitar solo. And this kind of sounds something similar that I heard on the last Witherscape album on the title track. Kind of has that veneer to it, which I really, really liked. So that was the first half. Second half, we kick things off with probably one of the best song titles I have ever heard, and I'm shocked nobody has come up with this title before. All Hallows Grieve. And throughout the entire track, it's this wonderfully performed, clean guitar riff that is kind of like a slowed down version of Aerials by System of a Down. I know some people may think I'm crazy to make that comparison, but when you hear that clean riff to start off, or that goes on throughout Aerials, that dun 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 dun, this riff on this song kind of reminds me of that a little bit, but just played much slower and a little bit different. But it just kind of made me think of that for some reason. Special guest female vocals on this song by Cammie Gilbert from the band Oceans of Slumber, as she is crooning along with Miko, doing beautiful duets throughout the entire song. Or they go back and forth with their vocals, sometimes they duet. But during the duets, the riff gets a bit heavier and a little bit more bombastic. And another beautiful, haunting guitar solo that just sounds like it's going in between sounding like you're going through grief to then falling into the abyss. And this was the first of 2 songs that have no growling vocals, which gets into the second one, The Void. And this is probably the most somber song of the entire album. This song kind of feels like it could have fit perfectly in line with When a Shadow is Forced into the Light, because it kind of keeps on that spirit a little bit with this song, as you start off with some death bells tolling. The bass line on this song sticks out like a sore thumb, because you can definitely hear it chugging along all throughout the track. And the riffs going in between being clean to being crunchy at times, but still keeping on that depressive atmosphere throughout, especially with them orchestral symphonic elements helping to drive that atmosphere even further into your mind. And yeah, this was the second of 2 songs that had all clean vocals. Then we get into a very epic song, the penultimate track, The Fight of Your Life. Wonderful acoustic guitars to begin this song, as the clean guitars gradually start to appear along with the acoustic and the violin. Then when the heavy riff comes in towards the middle of the song, it starts off more in that sinister tone before it just gets into some tremolo play and brings forth this feeling of triumph and ecstasy while the growling vocals come back. Marching snare popping in along with the acoustic and clean guitars afterwards, before the heavy triumphant guitars come back, as well as a victorious guitar solo that gives you the feeling that you won the fight of your life, even though the lyrics of the song kind of make it feel like it's only just begun for yourself. But I love how it just starts off with this, like, it feels like you're in a dark alley fight for your life. But then, like I said, when the heavy riffs come in, it feels more triumphant, especially with that guitar solo towards the end. And then we get to the final track, This House Has No Home. We get some theatrical, orchestral play going on, before all of a sudden, and it took me by surprise, we get blast beats to kick off this song, as it just gets into this black metal vibe, kind of reminiscent of like Dissection and Emperor and Mayhem a little bit. This was the most black metal inspired song of the entire album, and there's always been a hint of black metal in Swallow the Sun's music, but I wouldn't call them a straight up black metal band. I'd still call them a melodic death doom band. But yeah, this song has a lot of black metal going on, especially also in the vocals. Like, this is the one song of the album where Miko's voice goes straight black metal, or even like At the Gates inspired, like Tampa, going up into the higher shriek. And wow, lots of great double bass work. And then towards the end of the song, the thick, doomy riff that comes in to just reach the final chapter of this song. I mean, wow, I was not expecting a random black metal trope to show up, especially with like the blast beats and the tremolo riffing and the vocals just going, whoa. But yeah, overall with this album, you want to talk about a stark contrast to When a Shadow is Forced into Light, where that album was one of the most somber, sad, depressing albums I had ever heard. This album kind of feels like Swallow the Sun kind of going back to their roots a little bit with the more sinister melodic death doom sound, while still retaining a little bit of the slight black metal influence of the last album and the gothic elements on top, especially within the clean vocals. And honestly, this was heavier than When a Shadow is Forced into the Light. I'm not going to say it's as good as When a Shadow is Forced into the Light, because these two albums are completely different from one another. And two completely different thoughts of thinking. Whereas When a Shadow came out, it was mostly revolving around Aaliyah Stanbridge's unfortunate passing to cancer. Here, this was just more an angry album, more of an angry album of feeling like I can't get anything done. I feel like I'm trapped in this box mentally and physically, and how I just feel like I can't get out. It's just, this album had more anger to it, for sure, and a little more evil on top of it as well. Like I said, kind of going back to their roots a little bit, but still bringing in some of what you heard on When a Shadow, especially in the song The Void, but also introducing black metal riffing on the final track and blast beats. So overall, while it's not as good as When a Shadow is Forced into the Light, I would say this is definitely an amazing album. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. It's not quite perfect, because I feel like When a Shadow is Forced into the Light is a little bit better than this album. But still, this is a fantastic album, and I do plan on getting it at some point. Might go for the 2-disc version that comes with like the instrumentals and the classical versions of these songs, because I actually would be curious to hear how those would be. But what did you guys think of Moonflowers by Swallow the Sun? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope I see you in the comments, Ricky. If not, you are gonna get your fingers into your eyes. And until next time, as far as what I'm reviewing next, I'm hoping tomorrow I can get to the Obscura album and post a review of that for you. But until next time, horns high, see you guys later.
Oh no!
Oh my god!
No, please! No, please! I beg you!
Are you
Listen! We have an understanding! I don't like you! Just accept...
Tails, it's time for you to die! Tails, come back here! Tails,
Yeah, of course.
come back here!
Let me,
Again? Wow. Wow.
Quit
This is the most action I've gotten.
sniffing assholes and come stay feet. Yeah! Knew it! Knew it.
No! God, I told you, man.
Wow. Wow.